Welcome in to the PFF NFL podcast on a Wednesday morning. We're live on YouTube. Steve Palazzolo here with Sam Monson. YouTube exclusive.
Only YouTube. No audio.
We're back. We took a week off last week. Had some stuff going. Named coaches in. You know, we had
Again,
stuff
it's
to
not name checking if you don't actually.
But I can't really drop
name
their
drop
names.
them.
I can't really drop their names.
So it's more just cryptic, anonymous messaging.
We were very busy last week, but we're back. Mailbag edition on a Wednesday morning, and we had some really good questions come in
that
you just dropped on me again.
Yeah. People were very polite, like a full sort of sign-off with their name and where
have
they're
a great
from.
day.
Yeah.
There's a have a great day.
Like remember the guy last time who had the very not safe for work email and name?
Oh, yeah, this is
like the reverse of that. This is all prim and proper and polite and very nice.
It progressed back to the mean is what happened. Love the pod. Thanks for teaching me football. That was best wishes. That was one of the
very nice
the sign-offs here. So how's everything going midweek here for you?
Yeah, not too bad. You?
Yeah, good.
Excellent.
All right, let's talk football.
Banter over.
Okay, so the questions that came in, I'll just read this first one. Okay, this is from Tim Williams Keller. And I don't know if this is actually the cigarette-smoking Tim Williams, former Raven, and he just threw a Keller on the end of his name.
Okay. It's probably not, but sure.
It's probably not.
I like the image.
But Tim Williams Keller, love the podcast, was curious of your thoughts on schemes and offensive linemen. You were talking about how pundits are likely to call Mahomes a system quarterback, just stupid term in general anyway.
Yeah.
Which got me thinking, he didn't say that, my words. Which got me thinking, couldn't the same be said about other positions? With most offensive lines in the NFL being a hot mess, are there any teams that make their linemen look better than they actually are? Nate Solder comes to mind of how he seemed to be a pretty good tackle in New England, but not so much in New York. But do some teams just constantly put the line in bad situations like Pitt does with their linebackers? I think this is a great question. I think there are multiple positions where we can answer this, but let's start with the offensive line and that Nate Solder example. I think the easiest example is depth of drop of the quarterback, time to throw, the easiest way to protect offensive linemen.
So, yeah, there's a couple of elements to it, right? The first is, yes, you can obviously schematically protect offensive linemen. If you consciously go out there to have shorter drops, get the ball out of your hands quicker, scheme up a quicker passing game, it limits the amount you're asking those guys to do. They don't have to pass protect as deep. They don't have to pass protect for as long. It generally helps them out. Then there's the second element, which is quarterbacks can help them out, right? If you have a Peyton Manning back there who always drops to exactly the same spot, who understands when to move up, how to navigate a pocket, those guys can help offensive linemen massively. Then the reverse is true. If you have a quarterback that just doesn't get any of that stuff and drops too deep, and when he bails back towards pressure, or just stands there and lets the pressure kind of envelop him, there are quarterbacks that can massively screw offensive linemen as well, or make them look an awful lot worse. Then you get the guys that are kind of somewhere, it cuts both ways, right? And Aaron Rodgers, who at times dances around the pocket like a magician and essentially resets the leverage of his offensive linemen. Guys getting beat slightly inside. Rodgers takes one step, jumps back as if he's going to escape to the outside. Suddenly that pass rusher has to bounce back to cut him off. And then the offensive lineman is now fine again because Rodgers reset his leverage. On the other hand, for every one of those, Rodgers is going to hold the ball too long, run around a bit.
That kind of balances.
Right, and kind of draw in pressure that shouldn't have gotten there at all. So the overarching point is that all of these different things affect offensive linemen in ways that often aren't considered when we're just going, well, that guy gave up a sack. He's having a bad night.
So I would say at PFF, though, we do work very hard to know those things and to adjust for them. So using the Nate Solder example, if you remember back, not Solder specifically, but say New England, if you remember back to the divisional playoff last year that we talked about when Joey Bosa was mic'd up for the Chargers, and he's talking to Brady, and he's talking on the sideline. He's like, man, this guy just gets rid of it too quickly. And then
I'm winning every snap.
He gets to Brady, and the ball's already out, and he's like, come on, man, you're too quick, whatever it was, right? I believe in that. I can't remember the exact grade in that game, but I think Trent Brown didn't give up any pressures, but did not have a good pass blocking grade. So that's one of those ways where in our system, the O-lineman's not necessarily saved, but as far as giving up pressures, he might be saved because we're still saying, look, you got beaten quickly in 2.1 seconds. Okay, the ball's out. It's not a pressure, but we're still going to chart that as a loss for you. So it depends on how you say protection.
Yeah.
And then the other piece of offensive linemen, it's if people are idiots and they judge the offensive line by sacks, they would say, well, Aaron Rodgers doesn't do his offensive line any favors just because he takes a lot of sacks, or Russell Wilson takes a lot of sacks, or Deshaun Watson takes a lot of sacks. Therefore, he's not doing his O-line any favors. Now, in our world, that's essentially accounted for because just because you have a high sack total, we could put 10 on Watson, we could put 8 on Rodgers, right? So we're not really blaming the offensive line there. But I think the main point is if you have Brady dropping to 7 yards, snap after snap after snap, and then you have a Giants quarterback at 8, 9, and 10 yards, there is more pressure on the blocker. It is more difficult to win.
So just in terms of average time to throw, it gives you an interesting look. If you look at either ends of the spectrum, it's kind of interesting, right? Because the fastest average time to throw in the NFL this year has been Andy Dalton. So the Bengals, who have an abysmal offensive line, are desperately trying to protect it as much as they can by getting the ball out of Dalton's hands as quick as humanly possible, right? And it still looks like hot garbage.
Right.
So what that really says is think how bad that offensive line actually has been, that it looks this bad with them trying to protect it more than any other team in the NFL. Miami, Josh Rosen is 7th, I think, so they've been kind of trying to do the same thing. They're just not as good at it. And then obviously when Fitzpatrick comes in, he's like middle of the pack because Fitzpatrick doesn't give a crap. Yeah. So he's just like, look, the protection is what it is. I'm going to hang in here and throw a YOLO ball, and we'll see how it works out. Then at the other end of the scale, you have the longest average time to throw is still Kirk Cousins, right? So you've got Kirk Cousins, who also has a pretty bad offensive line, throwing them under the bus almost every single snap. Now, people will look at that and say, well, what about all those rollouts and the play action?
That is a factor
system? It's a factor, but if you take out all of those, if you just look at straight dropbacks, you take out play action, he's still the longest, right?
Yeah.
So that doesn't do it. The other thing is, the other counter to that is that Jimmy Garoppolo has the 3rd fastest, and they run, a similar system in terms of rollouts, dropbacks, yada, yada. So that doesn't explain why Kirk Cousins has the longest average time to throw in the NFL. And so it's just interesting, right? You've got two vaguely bad to terrible offensive lines, and one team is desperately trying to protect them, and the other team, if anything, and less the team and more the quarterback, is just killing them, making them look worse.
Yeah. The other part mentioned in the Shanahan scheme, there was a point where all of Kyle Shanahan's right tackles always seemed to grade well. Even in Washington, Tyler Columbus went from one of the worst to reasonable one year, and then he had Mitchell Schwartz, who's always been good, but he had Ryan Schrader in Atlanta, and then the whole Trent Brown breakout took place with him at right tackle under Shanahan in 2017 before he went to New England. So at the same time, McVay's running the same scheme. We thought maybe that's similar with Rob Havenstein, but that has not been the case for him this year. So
that was last year, and then I don't know.
For a couple of years he looked reasonable.
This
right?
year, the demise of Rob Havenstein is one of the great one of the great unexplainable events in 2019. What the hell happened to him?
Yeah. So as far as scheme goes, that's one of the. Anything else that stands out to you as far as like positions in certain schemes that historically you can kind of protect guys? What do you think about like a zone coverage corner?
Yeah,
being able to kind of protect himself a little bit.
So that's kind of interesting because it's more that style of system. I think it's an unfair pejorative to say that you protect zone corners by that style of system. I think it's just that way of playing coverage plays to a certain skill set that zone corners have, and if you put those guys in a man coverage system, they would be asked to do things that they suck at and would be bad, right? So it feels harsh to say that the system protects those guys more than just it's a different style of defense and one that doesn't work in the other scenario. It's like if you asked a pass rushing specialist to, set the edge against monster tackles and defend the run all day, it would be bad. That's not to say that you're protecting him by using him as a pass rushing specialist. You know what I mean? It just feels like a harsh way of articulating that dynamic in coverage. But I think you can protect linebackers. You can protect guys that suck in coverage, etc. You can protect certain skill sets of linebackers by doing various things, whether it's against the run or the pass.
Here's a spot. Mike Renner brought this up a couple years ago. Benardrick McKinney with the Houston Texans. Now, his role has changed a little bit over the last couple years because they're playing a little bit more zone. and he's developed pretty nicely as a player overall for a guy that was coming out of Mississippi State, looked like a one-dimensional thumper, right? They played a lot of cover one man a couple years ago, and when you're that lurk defender in the middle, you don't necessarily have a specific assignment. You're just kind of an add-on extra player. You're not in man coverage. You're playing the hole or whatever it is, and you're almost kind of like in our system, you can't be wrong, right? But if you go make a play,
right,
good job. So you're not really covering a man. You're kind of just helping out, playing a short zone while everybody else is manning up, and you have more opportunities for, say, positively graded plays than negatively graded plays. So I think that would be one example. The cover one middle linebacker that's not asked to play in man coverage against a running back or a tight end.
And then, of course, the other thing is quarterbacks, right? Everybody, it's almost the holy grail of offensive play. How do you best protect a quarterback that isn't an Aaron Rodgers, a Patrick Mahomes, a Deshaun Watson? Like a guy that you're not confident in being able to just do whatever you need him to do every single down. How do you protect those guys? And I think that's one of the great driving forces behind all these different offensive systems. Everybody has a different way of doing it, right? Do you limit the reads? Do you cut them down and honestly, there might not be one single way of doing it. It's dependent on what your quarterback can do and can't do, right? So do you cut down the reads and make all of his stuff half-field reads, right? So instead of having to go right to middle to left and work through 5 different options, you say, look, you're never going to have to read more than like 2 guys or even 1 guy. Pick a defender you're putting in a bind and say, figure out where he goes, throw it the opposite direction. So a lot of teams do that with the rollout stuff where you automatically limit him to half the field because he's not, roll out left, you're not looking to the far right guy running a post or whatever. So there's that. There's the Cam Newton story, right? Do we get a bunch of giant targets for him to hit? Do we get a bunch of guys that are shifty and underneath? There's all these different ways of potentially trying to protect quarterbacks that offensive coordinators are trying to wrestle with because most teams do not have a Mahomes, a Rodgers, etc.
And I think we would view it maybe from a macro level, not so much from a schematic level, and just say, look, I know it sounds very simplistic, and I know this is part of the issue that maybe football coaches have with analytics because we just say, if you just run 5% more play action plays, you're giving your guys a chance.
Them, yeah.
If you just run more on pass more on 2nd and 10, pass more on 1st down, pass when people think you're going to run, run when people think you're going to pass, run more play action. I think stealing boot action doesn't always work, but man, getting that defense moving laterally creates some easy dump offs in the flat. If you just steal a couple of those throws every single game, I mean, to me, that's the best way that you protect a lesser quarterback. If he's going to drop back 30 times in a game, make 10 to 15 of them, foolproof play action and screens and the easy stuff, right? And just limit how many times he's got to drop back, read the full field, and do more work, so to speak.
So this next question is really fun and seems made for you, right? Because some guy has created essentially a list of the young quarterbacks in the NFL and comparisons, player comps to them, right? Which is always a giant pain in the ass to do because a lot of them don't fit. So we've got Sam Darnold, Josh Allen, Lamar Jackson, Kyler Murray, Marcus Mariota, Derek Carr, Baker Mayfield, Jameis Winston, Daniel Jones, and Patrick Mahomes.
Now, hold on. It looks like all of these comps are straight off our podcast. These have all been made before.
Well, this is entirely possible.
I think he's telling us what our comps were.
Well, yeah, sure. But the question is on younger guys not on the list.
Yeah, he said, I've heard you make some of this.
Have we got a clear comparison that we've missed? So, for example, Josh Rosen to Kirk Cousins. So
let's save our Rosen one. We had a Rosen one before.
Okay. So that's so the comps, Sam Darnold, Phillip Rivers.
So I actually made that pre-draft.
Yeah, these are all these.
Let me go through it really quick. But I made that
Fine, you go through it.
Oh, you just want to list them?
That's cool.
So you listed, and I'll explain.
We're going to list them
if we've made it before.
No. Let's assume we've made all these ones, and then we're asking for the other.
The
non-people listed.
Fine.
So Josh Allen to Cam Newton on the basis that neither are the most accurate quarterback in the world, both big play guys. Lamar Jackson, Michael Vick. That was your one, right?
Yep.
Kyler Murray, Russell Wilson.
We've seen that. Yeah, I think Murray's high end would be.
Yeah, we've talked before about how Mariota and Ryan Tannehill are basically the same guy. Only one of them is less in the tank right now than the other one. Derek Carr to Alex Smith in terms of low aggression but capable of making all the plays.
Accurate, short, intermediate, all that. Yep.
Baker Mayfield to Brett Favre. We're talking early career Brett Favre right now.
And early career Baker Mayfield, to be honest.
Oh, yeah, true.
Yeah.
Jameis being Ryan Fitzpatrick, being Eli Manning, being like Jameis. That's
Jameis
YOLO.
equals Ryan Fitzpatrick equals Daniel Jones equals Eli Manning.
Right. Daniel Jones being Eli Manning 2.0, and then Mahomes being utterly unique, impossible to compare to anybody.
I would agree with that.
Right.
Yeah.
So the young guys in the league right now that aren't on that list, the most obvious is Deshaun Watson. Who's his comp? Hard, right? There's no good one for him.
Yeah, so when he was in college, I made a Cam Newton comp, which had nothing to do with size or even velocity or anything like that. Only that Watson was capable of making big time throws, but his throw accuracy was a little subpar. His intermediate accuracy, and we've seen that at the NFL level too. His ball location numbers are low for us, but Watson's still able to be good because of those big time throws. That's what we saw from Cam in that peak 2015 season. Special throws, but still not the most accurate throw guy. I don't love that comp anyway because they're just different as passers anyway. I was just doing it. The thing about comps is sometimes you can compare one specific thing, right? And it doesn't encapsulate everything. I don't have a good one for Watson.
So this is going deep, deep, deep into the history books, and therefore is sketchy at best because it's not like I've watched every game of this guy play. But Deshaun Watson seems to remind me a lot of how Fran Tarkenton played.
Oh boy,
which is. A lot of it is chaotic and insane and shouldn't function, but somehow does.
Yeah.
Now, I don't know,
that reminds me.
Throw for throw, whether Fran Tarkenton's ball location was great, because we didn't have that back in the, whatever the hell he was playing, 60s.
I have comps for some of these other guys. That's good.
Yeah.
There was a comp for Patrick Mahomes.
Oh, yeah?
That L.A. Rams assistant quarterback coach, Zach Robinson, used.
What do you use?
Sammy Baugh.
What?
Yeah.
How do you?
Dig up some YouTube on Sammy Baugh. I haven't yet. But he said Sammy Baugh.
Okay. How did he know? How much Sammy Baugh tape was that grinding? More to the point,
I don't know.
We didn't give him enough work to do if he was cranking out Sammy Baugh tape in his free time.
Well, maybe that was part of his pitch. Look, Jared Goff.
Reminds me a lot of Sammy Baugh.
Reminds me of Sammy Baugh. I could extract the best out of him.
No, because he wouldn't have used Sammy Baugh for Goff then. He would have used, Bobby Lane.
He would have used.
Reminds me a lot of Bobby Lane.
Terry Bradshaw, maybe.
Yeah, that's going more modern though. We need to
stay back. That's too modern.
Yeah, like Bobby Lane or
modern day Otto
who
Graham
else
here.
Playing the 40s. Yeah, Otto Graham. That would have been a good one. Okay, fine.
And Gerald Everett reminds me of Mike Ditka at tight end.
No, he doesn't.
No, not at all.
Not at all.
So of this list, Mason Rudolph. I didn't love this one, but I thought it was.
He was this. We've talked before. Rudolph was the hardest evaluation we had because the numbers, any way you looked at him, it either said he was going to be great or terrible and nothing in the middle.
There was some good grading, there was some poor accuracy, and then even from a scouting standpoint, it's wow, you really zipped that ball in there. That's an NFL throw. And then another one's why are you throwing a duck?
Yeah.
Why is that happening?
So everything about him was either great or terrible, nothing in the middle, and who the hell knows how that shakes out.
During draft time, I saw someone else make a Matt Schaub comp for Rudolph, which I didn't hate. As far as, and again, it's not all skill set driven, but Matt Schaub had a very successful career in a well-protected Kubiak system, and I think if Rudolph was in one of those well-protected systems, not necessarily Kubiak, but one that just puts him in a good position to succeed, had really nice playmakers to throw to, I could see that comparison.
Okay.
Gardner Minshew, the one that's come to mind for me in recent weeks is Rich Gannon.
Rich Gannon?
Yeah.
Huh. I wouldn't have come up with that, but now that you've said it, I don't hate it.
Similar stature.
Yeah.
Neither had a great arm, though I did, I fire up some 2000 Raiders film every now and again, just for fun. And Gannon was kind of zipping it around there. But, Gannon at his best, he had those few years where he was an MVP and an MVP candidate and just spreading the ball around in the old school West Coast offense to Tim Brown, Jerry Rice, running backs out of the backfield, tight ends, and he was just distributor and off-balance stuff and just natural playmaking combined with some, on-time pocket passing. I thought that was good.
How did you not come up with the one? So I've got two comparisons from Minshew, of which I'm staggered that you didn't draw the same one.
What's that?
Who's your favorite
Brunell?
quarterback of all time?
Mark
Okay, he's
Brunell.
a lefty, but...
No, Brunell had a cannon, though.
Did he?
Oh, yeah.
Really?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, cannon, really good deep ball.
So the other one is Jeff Garcia.
I've seen Jeff. Yeah, I saw Jeff Garcia for Baker, too.
Baker. Yeah,
which I didn't hate
honestly,
stylistically.
those two, other than like arm strength,
Yeah.
the two are actually kind of similar in terms of playing style.
Garcia and Minshew make sense too, because you just have those guys that are like a little unorthodox as far as mechanics go, and they're just going to find the open guy and
doesn't
get
have the
stuff
biggest
done.
arm in the world, and also like irritatingly athletic. Right? You look at him and you're like, no, there's no chance, and then he's just like breaking ankles of a guy who should have had him penned in the pocket. You're like, what the? How did that happen?
Yeah. So I have not found a clear Mark Brunell comp.
Okay.
I don't think through the years.
I don't hate
there's
Garcia
no comparison
for Minshew.
I mean,
who else is
the
on
only
list?
Mark Brunell comp? It's like Steve Young was kind of like Mark Brunell light. I'd say. I think that's the most fair. Dwayne Haskins.
I mean, have we seen enough of Haskins to know?
Well, my pre-draft comp was Sam Bradford, and it was because I thought clean pocket, short, intermediate accuracy.
Yeah, it's
and
very much a sort
feel.
of from the way, from like the makeup of what we think he's good at.
Exactly, but it's also what he's not good at. I don't think so. Short area accuracy, Sam Bradford was fantastic. You make everything nice around him. Looks like an excellent NFL quarterback. That was Haskins at Ohio State. Like, oh, wow, look at that NFL dig route from a massive clean pocket. All that stuff looks great. Anytime you move him off the spot, ask him to do anything somewhat athletic, downfield throwing accuracy, I think Haskins and Bradford are all kind of similar. I didn't love Haskins' just general pocket presence, and I think we've seen some of that so far as a rookie.
Trubisky.
I do not. I can't remember if I had one for him coming out. And I did like a lot of things about his game. I do also remember looking at his UNC game, and I remember tweeting this too. It's like, man, just when he's about to convince me that he's really good, he does something that would drive me nuts, even at UNC. But he's really athletic. He's got very inconsistent accuracy, and overall decision-making hasn't really improved. I think that's my bigger... The accuracy thing, I feel like you can kind of mitigate it a little bit if you're doing some other things well, but he's not even recognizing blitzes and all these different things that were an issue coming out of UNC. I don't know if I've got a clean one.
Yeah, I mean, so that's the interesting thing is we talked about this before. We like Trubisky coming out. I mean, maybe our logic could have used some work in terms of, look, if he's this good with 1 year starting, think how good he'll be after 4 years starting.
Yeah, because we'd have to apply that to Dwayne Haskins, and
Right.
we'd have to apply it to Kyler, really.
Turns out it doesn't work that way all the time.
No.
But, we liked him coming out. Like, we didn't – it's not like you hated this guy as a prospect. It's only at the NFL level, and in particular this year, that you're like, wow, this is just – it's just bad.
Yeah.
You
looking through the archives
I am.
for guys?
I'm trying to look at like quarterbacks that have played like crap back in the mid 2000s. Like honestly, sadly,
late year Jake Delhomme, late career Jake Delhomme.
Yeah, it's like it's late year. Well, he's got a better arm. He's more athletic than Delhomme.
Oh, he's Kyle Bowler.
So this is the thing, right? If you look, and honestly, it's failed Bears quarterbacks like
Jay Cutler,
low end Jay Cutler.
Yeah.
Rex Grossman, like he's more athletic than Grossman, but they have some of the same problems.
Yeah.
Honestly, if you just look at the list of bad Bears quarterbacks, there's a couple that are basically the same.
Or bad Browns quarterbacks. Derek Anderson.
They got a lot of those. No, he's like so Anderson couldn't move, right?
No, that's true. That's not even close.
Yeah. I mean, Brady Quinn, he's more athletic. Again, he's more athletic than most of these guys, which is his saving grace. But a lot of the same problems were there. Like honestly. Is he like a Geno Smith?
So, yeah, one of the things I didn't love about Geno, we talked about how good Brady is and Peyton is, knowing where they are in the pocket.
Yeah.
Geno would drift, and he just didn't have that natural passing ability. Mm-hmm. And remember, I love when we went to training camp. Back when we went to training camp for the Jets and you saw Geno Smith throw the ball side by side with Ryan Fitzpatrick. Ryan Fitzpatrick's putting his whole life into the ball just to get the ball 20 yards, and Geno's got the nice spiral, and it looks right. But when you watch them run the offense, you just saw like Fitzpatrick's decision-making was a tick faster. So there was always something lacking with Geno as far as processing. I mean, Tebow had the same thing. Like Tebow, as inaccurate as he was, his processing speed was slow.
Yes.
And I think Trubisky has a little bit of that too. It's like
I stopped short of Tebow, but honestly, part of me wanted to go there.
Oh,
with the Trubisky comp.
for Mitchell.
Like obviously, he's instead of being more athletic this time, he actually does pass the ball better than Tebow. But again, so ultimately, I think what we're coming down to with Trubisky is there is no perfectly clean comp.
Yeah.
But you can take a little piece out of a lot of bad quarterbacks and assemble a Mitchell Trubisky. Like, you ever see those pieces where it's like, if we were building the perfect NFL quarterback,
you were building the perfect Trubisky.
Right, you would take Josh Allen's arm or Patrick
Right.
Mahomes' arm, Lamar Jackson's legs, Peyton Manning's brain, all this kind of stuff, right? If you were building Trubisky, you would be taking like Tebow's athleticism. You just basically assemble crappy parts out of all these failed quarterbacks, put them all together in some sort of horrific Frankenstein, jab it with the electrodes, and Trubisky rises from the death and walks out onto Soldier Field and throws a pick. That's what we're saying here.
There's one more obvious one I think that we missed.
Oh yeah,
the one that George keeps using.
Bortles.
Bortles.
Oh, Bortles. Yeah.
Oh.
Bortles North.
Forget all that.
Okay, yeah.
It's Blake Bortles.
Okay, so yeah, he's not a Frankenstein of terrible quarterbacks. He's just Blake Bortles North.
There you go.
Fair
do
enough.
you want to do one more, or do we have to wrap it up?
We can do one more.
All right, listening to you talk about Jalen Ramsey and how it's inevitable that he'll grade higher due to his assignments and talent, I was just wondering what other players you'd see the same way, basically who is underachieving or not grading as well due to what's being asked of them.
By the way, I just wanted to credit the previous question because it came from a guy called Anton. I'm going to guess this is pronounced Razgard from Rome, Italy.
Yeah, he was
That's
the one who
good.
was really polite. Love the pod.
Yeah,
Thanks
yeah.
for teaching me football. Like,
Well,
you're welcome.
we got an email all
Anton.
the way from Rome. Very cultured.
Appreciate it, Anton.
This one is from Sam Morris, which is less cultured and fancy.
Yeah. And he
but
could be
still,
from anywhere.
We appreciate it anyway. Anyway, so Jalen Ramsey-esque players who, because of the situation they're in, could potentially grade better down the road
I think it's
because they're being put in tough roles, is the point.
always the cornerbacks.
Can I give you one?
Yes.
Devin Bush. Devin Bush is in a tricky spot in Pittsburgh because they ask a lot of their linebackers. We talked about that a lot.
Right.
He consequently is not grading particularly well, even though he is making a lot of big plays. I would say ultimately down the road, he will either, I'm going to give you the Jameis Winston logic, he'll either have a season where he eliminates the bad plays and just we get all the good, or at some point they will ask less of him and we'll get natural playmaking dominance.
I also think it's like Ryan Shazier. Remember,
it took him a while
before
to
his injury, everybody's like, look at what he's doing to Pittsburgh's coverage unit and all this stuff. We're like, man, he's never even grading. Like, he's not that good. He's missing tackles and all this stuff. And then he finally
4
had
years in, bam, puts it together.
He did have his breakout season at one point.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so Devin Bush.
That's
Here's
your
my
answer? I don't have one.
You don't have one? Well, let's go with Devin Bush then.
Devin Bush is the answer.
Okay, done.
There you go. Is that it?
Yeah.
Man, I'm used to talking for like 2 hours.
I know, but mailbag, quick mailbag.
That was good. You guys,
Rattle
too,
through some
can
questions.
contribute to the mailbag. It
Yes.
is podcasts,
Yep, plural podcast.
multiple podcasts, at pff.com.
Correct. Or
Send
just,
us
fire us questions on Twitter, which we probably won't remember.
At PFF_Sam,
Yeah.
at PFF_Steve. Be very nice to us on Twitter. I got to, get off Twitter all the time because people are so angry sometimes.
Yeah, it's a cesspool at this point.
It's getting bad.
Yeah, we're being played off with the music. It's probably time to wrap
I
it
hear
up.
that. What happened to the good old days of Twitter back in like 2011 when there was like 12 people on there?
Yeah.
Sports by Brooks had the most followers in the world, and life was simpler
I don't
back
know.
then.
But
all right.
apparently it's just a place for people to bitch now.
Yeah.
Okay.
So hit us up on Twitter. We'll definitely read it. Thanks, guys. We'll be back tomorrow with your Week 10 NFL preview.